It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is June 12th. Is that right, John? Did you get to the 12th already?
It is 2 days away from Flag Day.
Man, you know, I heard Mark Cox. He also listens to other radio stations. By the way, 97.1, this is radio, Brad the radio nerd, okay? I detected that they have some new audio processing on their transmitter. So I texted their chief engineer, who I actually have in my phone book, a nice guy by the name of Aaron Cox. And yesterday I said, Aaron, are you using new processing on the station? And he says, yes. And I said, sounds great. I wish I could afford it. And he gave me the model number. And, John, I have something to look forward to. We can sound as good as 97.1 if I have $10,000, because it was actually it was $11,000. Like, it had a couple options on it. But that's the new Orban, not to be confused with Victor Orban, but it's the Orban.
Yeah, completely different guy.
The Orban 5950. Okay, one more thing to talk about, and then we'll move on to, I read this article. I don't normally talk about this kind of stuff. This is article in Fox News yesterday about Billy Cyrus's son unleashes scathing critique of hungry for fame father. Okay, first off, do you know, like, Billy Ray Cyrus has got like 5 kids? Did you know this?
No, I didn't know that he had. I knew that Miley had a brother, or at least one brother, but I didn't know that there were many other kids.
Okay, his son, and what's his son's name? His son is Trace Cyrus. Okay, first off, I have a little issue with Trace because Trace has a full neck tattoo, and then it goes up his face, and it goes on the right side of his face, up in front of his ear, and he's got crazy weird things coming out of his eyes. And he's a good-looking dude other than that. But it talks about in the article that Trace was adopted. And the reason this came out was, this is interesting, that Miley Cyrus was on Monica Lewinsky's podcast. And she said she got candid about her messy family. And it says, according to this on her podcast, she says, my family and I have had a really difficult, what did you call your decade? Dark decade. Yes, we had one of those, Miley said. Let me get to the thing. It says that here's the siblings include Brandy, 38, Trace, 36, who's adopted, Christopher, 33, Brayson, Braison, 31, and Noah, 25. So hold it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 of them. So if you if you go,
including Miley, but one of them, at least one of them, is adopted. You said
yes. That's Trace. He's the one that and she goes on to say half of us weren't speaking to each other at one point, and we cleaned up all that. And she goes on to say, in that situation, I watch what happens when you don't clean things up as they're happening. They really do stack, and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, it's been 10 years, and this is a mess that I've barely seen how to know to start. This is like emotional hoarding. So I'm going like, what's interesting about this is, John, all of his kids are not sleeping underneath overpasses in downtown L.A. And it's my example of one, and I go back to, this is crazy, because I go back to my college classes. I think you probably had the same thing in your college class. Did you ever take a psychology class, John?
I did, yeah.
And did you learn Maslow's theory of hierarchy?
Yeah, we've talked about it many times on this show.
This is a perfect example of Maslow's theory of hierarchy. Essentially, it's an inverted pyramid or a right-side pyramid, whichever way you look at it. And essentially, you go up and down. There's a couple different theories on this. That at the base of that pyramid, and this is how I always remember it, the base of the pyramid is caveman kind of time. Because all you're worried about is, A, not having that tiger eat you, and B, where are you going to find something to eat and drink, right?
And shelter, right?
Right, and shelter. Right.
Being safe from the elements, eating, and not dying.
Right. Essentially, those are the base things. And then as you acquire those, you move up or down the pyramid, whichever way you look at it, to the point where your needs become more specific and more refined. You don't use regular mustard. You don't use Hellman's mustard. You use Grey Poupon, and if you don't have any Grey Poupon.
Like self-actualization type stuff.
Exactly. So, once again, I don't think the Miley or the Billy Ray Cyrus family is hurting, especially Miley, who's making tons of money. And Noah had some songs out for a while. I don't know if she's doing anything or not anymore. But, sometimes I read these stories and I think to myself, okay, in full disclosure, I have a really messed up family. And unfortunately, it started with my grandfather on my father's side. My grandfather on my father's side came over to the United States from Russia illegally. I think he bypassed Ellis Island. This would have been like in the late 1800s or early 1900s. Had my father in 1920. He left my father when my father was 2 years old. And I've told the story before. One day, and my father never saw him again. At least he didn't realize he saw him. There's a crazy story about that. But when my father was in his early 30s and had his job working for an engineering firm in downtown St. Louis, one day a man came to the front desk and says, "Does Lee Hildebrand work here?" And the lady says, "Yes." And the guy says, "Tell him his father's in City Hospital. He's dying and he wants to see him." So my dad went to see him and he died 2 hours later. Okay, that's the start of my crazy, weird, messed up family. And at one point in time, my father divorced his 2 step-siblings, step-brother and step-sister, and we were never to see them again. So, do I have a screwed-up family situation? I do. Some say my current family situation is screwed up. But, you know what? If I had lots of money, I don't think it would be screwed up. I'd go like, "Hey, you kids, I don't care what you do. I got my Learjet. I got my Gulfstream 550. You know what? Kids, I'm going to Hawaii for the weekend. You work it out." You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah. So let's get back to what the kid, the son, the adopted kid, what is he complaining about?
He's saying that
let me interrupt too. Where is he complaining? So did he go on somebody's celebrity podcast, or what is he complaining about?
Let me see if I can find this. My phone.
Because that's how we started the story.
Right. The phone glitched again. He's saying, essentially what he's saying, to put it in very blunt terms, he is saying his father is a attention or a, what do you call it? Not necessarily attention, but newsworthy whore. He's hungry for fame. That's what he says. His father is hungry for fame.
And let me interrupt that, Brad. I don't know why anybody would be surprised by that somebody that's a, Hollywood type or a singer, maybe an egomaniac or whatever. But what does the son gain by putting down a man who adopted him? What do you get? Does it make you feel better to lash out at your dad? Why do you do that?
I have no idea. It's airing family business in public, which I don't think is correct. If you've got problem with your siblings, your mother, your father, you go have a sit down with them, and maybe it turns into, a Jefferson County meeting where you go out in the parking lot and you exchange knuckle sandwiches, that kind of a thing. It's to the point where I don't get it. And you read the article, and see, it's funny because I got sort of swept in the thing, and I'll read you the very first paragraph. It says, on Tuesday, Trace Cyrus, who was adopted by Billy Ray Cyrus shortly after his marriage to ex-wife Tish Cyrus in the 90s, aired his own grievances with his dad on social media. Quote, "This man is so hungry for fame. It's pathetic," he wrote on Instagram. Oh, that's your favorite, John. He really flew to Italy for a fashion show, but wouldn't come to L.A. for Mamie's funeral. I don't know who Mamie is. Mamie's funeral while he was still married to my mom. Even after his daughter got a $60K private jet like he demanded, then he still didn't come after the plane was paid for. What is that? I don't understand. He didn't show up for some Mamie. Is that a grandmother? Is that probably
maybe
what it
that's
was?
a grandma or something? I don't know.
You know what? Once again, this kind of stuff, it's like, who? Okay.
But just imagine, I guess on the flip side of that, Brad, imagine what your life is like as this kid. If you think, you know what, I'm going to get even with my dad by making an Instagram post.
I don't understand it.
How sad is your life if you attack a friend or a loved one on social media before you go to them privately and personally?
I will tell you, and bringing the curtain a little bit away from my private life, okay? I have an ex-wife. I talk to my ex-wife almost every day, sometimes multiple times per day, and mainly because of the fact that we're talking about our kids. My only kid who still lives here, my youngest, Drew, who's now 31 years old, still lives in the St. Louis area. Matter of fact, he lives in South City. I've talked about the fact that he moved in with his roommate. They bought a house in South City. And I love all my kids, love them very much. And I went to dinner with my ex-wife and my son. Was that Monday night, Tuesday night? Tuesday night, I guess it was, okay? At Chili's at Mid-Rivers Mall. And my son is we talked about this, yesterday morning? Didn't we talk about this yesterday morning? My son is an avowed Bernie Sanders fanatic. And I just sit there and listen. And he talks about Bernie Sanders is great and wonderful, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? It's his opinion. I'm not going to change him. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to say, well, Drew, I'm never going to talk to you again because I don't believe in Bernie Sanders. I think the guy's a fake. He talks about the oligarchy. And yes, he has 3 houses and he's a multimillionaire. I'm not going to do that. I listen to what he says, and you know what? I find it interesting because different strokes for different folks. I'm the guy, and John, how many times since you've known me and where before you've known me, when someone says something that I think is not necessarily, I think is a little bit out there or doesn't agree with me, I try to call them up and put them on the air. And guess what they won't do?
They won't explain themselves to you.
They won't even take the call. They won't even, this goes back to the old days when I did the Brian Nieves show, the Patriot Enclave.
Right, we got it. And let's go back to the family stuff, Brad. You were making a good point there. We don't need to talk about Brian Nieves as a meandering thing. But I think it's one of your best traits, Brad. And before we did the show together, I remember you telling me a story about your ex-wife. And I think the fact that you were able to be a good human being, and I'm sure there's cases that people have where their ex tried to, smash a bottle over their head or some nonsense, and they have a reason for being rude to someone. But the fact that you have this type of attitude about your family, I think, says everything important about you.
Well, let me just say this one thing, and we'll move on to Mike Elam. I'll give him a call real quick. I've never understand. I can't comprehend this. How you find someone, in this case, a man finds a woman, and they have this mutual attraction, and they fall in love, and they have this incredible love affair, and it turns into a marriage, and then it turns into a family, and then something goes wrong, and it turns into the Hatfields and McCoys. I don't understand that.
Yeah, but here's why, Brad. I think here's why it happens. Because I think so many people are obsessed with their own ego. And what I love about you, Brad, among many things I love about you, is you have no ego when it comes to anything about like a personal battle or anything about like a personal disagreement. You don't. I guess what I'm saying is that some people would think, okay, now that they are my ex-boyfriend, my ex-husband, my whatever, I have to have a victory. I have to win. I have to put them down, and that'll make me feel better. Like, and if, by the way, I hate to say this, but if you chose to marry somebody like that, that shows that you have a really poor selection of people. Or, you could make the argument, well, they were hiding who they really were or whatever. But I agree with you completely, Brad. Like, but the reason why people do that is they're obsessed with their own ego, and they think, if I'm not in a relationship with that man or that woman, I want them to suffer, and I want people on Facebook to know that I won. Look at me having all this fun now that I'm single.
I don't get it. I never will. Okay, it's time for Mike Elam. Let's see if we can get him on the phone here real quick. John hates it when I call people on the phone. Is one ringy-dingy. He probably won't answer.
Hey, Brett, what's going on?
Mike, you're on the air right now, so no potty mouth, okay?
Do you really think that's a worry?
Mike, I got John, and we've got this problem where you can't necessarily hear John. Okay, Mike, can I tell you a weird story?
Sure.
At 5:30 last night, I headed west on 70, north on 270, west on 370, got off of Newtown Boulevard. My aim was to come to your campaign event, okay?
Great.
I never found it.
Okay.
And part of the problem was, as I come into Newtown, I stop a lady, or lady stopped with her golf cart. I thought for a minute I was in Cottleville. You know what I'm saying, John? Mike, you know what I'm saying, Mike?
There's an awful lot of golf carts in Newtown. That's kind of their thing, man.
So looking at your press release, it says, and I think I still have it up here. Do I still have it up? It says, tonight, 6 p.m. at the Commons Courtyard in Newtown. So I asked the woman, where's the Commons Courtyard in Newtown? And first she looked at her friend in the golf cart, and I go, oh, go down here and go right. So I went down there and went right. I ended up at a construction site, okay? So I go onto my phone, and I type in Newtown Commons Courtyard, and it takes me to a residential area, and then I try it again, it takes me to another residential area. Where the hell was this?
So it was at 333, and I know this is crazy, Brett, but it actually had an address on the invitation, and if there's this crazy thing called Mapquest. I don't know, it's new. But if you put that in your phone, it will actually drive you straight to the parking lot, which was right there.
John, I keep calling John. Mike, I'm not trying to contradict you, but I'm looking at your invitation I got right now. Tonight at 6 p.m., I see no other address on here other than Commons Courtyard in Newtown. I'm looking all the way down. It says again, Commons Courtyard, Newtown, St. Charles. Riders very be here. If you're unable to encourage, thank you and see you again. There's never an address on here. Your address is on here, but I can't find an address for the Commons Courtyard.
So 333 Rural Road is the address.
You tell me.
Next time we do that, we would be more than happy to have you stop by. And I'm sorry you missed it because it was actually a great event. Newtown is an amazing area. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it really is a great development. And the courtyard area that Paul has up there is beautiful. And the restaurants that they have around the volleyball area, it's just a great, relaxing community that we're really lucky to have in St. Charles County because it's unique to the whole region. There's not a lot like it. I don't know that there's any like it in the region.
Mike, you said it's not your cup of tea, and nothing against the Newtown because it is very interesting. And quite honestly, I haven't been there in a long time, and it's matured. There's not big trees. It is very beautiful. I just find it creepy, but that's just me. You know what, Mike? You know what I'm saying? It's somehow, it's like I'm expecting, like I'm going to see this in a movie sometime. The horror of Newtown. You know what I mean? Some crazy thing that happened where the people are, we live in Newtown. We are all robots. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
So what's great is the region is made up of a lot of different people who want different things, and that includes they want different experiences in where they live. So that's why it's important to offer a variety of options in housing choices. Some people want to have 3, 5, 10-acre lots. Other people want to have a really close-knit townhome-like community. And I think it's great that we can offer all of that in St. Charles County.
And some people like me want to live in a van down by the river, right, Mike?
Hey, man, I support your freedom of choice to be able to do that. You do you, Brad.
Okay, Mike, John wants me to ask you very quickly because we're near the end of the show. What's going on with the campaign?
The campaign's been fantastic. I have 7 campaign events that are going on this month alone. Today, some of them are more private folks. Like I've got a manufacturing luncheon that I'm doing today with 20 manufacturers in St. Charles County that we're all getting together to talk about that. Tuesday, I'm going to be at Shamrock's, Kyle and Kelly Dent's place there in St. Peter's. And then the following Tuesday, we're going to be down at Brass Rail in O'Fallon. So whether you're east or west, we've got something that's close to you. We'd love for you to come by and say hi.
And if people want more...
Brad, the question is, how can people find out more about the campaign?
John says, how can people find out more about the campaign?
God love John Compass for being a marketer.
He is.
You can always go to MikeElam.com. You can follow me on all the social media at Vote Mike Elam. So I appreciate you guys for the opportunity.
And Mike...
Hey, by the way, before the show is over, I was talking with Shelley Barr earlier this week, and it was amazing to hear from her. And she was just talking about how she keeps hearing my commercials on 107.1 and how it always puts a smile on her face. So it was great to connect with Shelley and a little throwback to some BS in the morning.
And Mike, can I ask you a pointed question? Your commercials are running on both Westplex 104 or Westplex 107.1 and Westplex 104.5. And how did you get those commercials on the air, Mike? How did you get those commercials on the air?
I joined the Westplex Chamber, and it is a great organization to be able to get exposure at an extremely reasonable price point that pretty much any business or person can afford to get into and plug into the Westplex.
God, you are good, Mike. Have you ever thought about going into the radio business?
I was going to, but it doesn't pay very well. So I decided to go to the broadband business instead. Connecting people with fiber is my life's work right now.
I saw you being attacked by the fiber monster on Facebook. Did you see that the fiber monster was attacking you?
I did not, but maybe I'll figure that part out a little bit later.
I'll send you the picture. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I'm sorry I couldn't show up at your event last night, but put that address on there so us old folks can with our canes can find those locations, okay?
God love you, man. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. John, we're way over. And thanks for chiming in because I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, Mike's a great sport.
Here it is. Say goodbye, John.
See you tomorrow.